Hello and welcome to the UKAsian. My name is Vijayalis and we're here today in London with Mr. Suhel Seth, socialite, columnist, actor, ad man, one correspondent for a leading Indian news agency in London, a female correspondent, described you as a self-obsessed womanizer as well. But you're not particularly fond of labels, are you?
I don't care. I mean, she can think whatever she does.
Okay.
I hope I didn't make a pass at her. Is she ugly?
Absolutely not. No, I personally don't think so.
But I really don't care.
Right. How would you describe yourself as?
Just as an ordinary man doing ordinary things, giving extraordinary interviews, which disrupt my rather ordinary schedule.
Speaking of ordinary schedules, you've just come back from 10 Downing Street. Are you going to be Cameron Svengali for 2015?
No such thing.
You're not going to run his re-election campaign?
No.
His faltering re-election campaign?
No.
No? But you're not going to divulge anything about what you did
Not
with
at
George
all.
Osborne or anything
Not
like
at all.
that? Not taking up any British governmental posts?
Not
or
yet.
anything like
I haven't
that?
yet been thrown out of India. I wasn't involved with IPL, so I'm still safe.
Speaking of which, again, IPL, we're in London. What is your take on Raj Kundra's involvement with all
I
of
think
this?
Raj Kundra has admitted to saying that, he used to bet. Raj, I've known, I think it is abominable for him to have bet, especially knowing the moral issues that are linked to it. Forget the legal issues. Legality is a step removed. I think we need to be wary of the moral and the ethical issues with which we conduct ourselves. And I think the fact that he's admitted to betting in itself is a damning indictment of his ethics more than his legal position.
And you've been very vocal on Indian TV channels about, for instance, the BCCI's conduct as well. But having said that, do the actions of three players, does that tarnish cricket in general in India and the IPL as a whole?
I think it certainly tarnishes the IPL. And see, tarnish is a strong word. What it does is it induces betrayal and it removes trust. To my mind, any consumer wants to trust the brand he or she either uses or supports. The day I lose trust in that brand, for me, it's over. And for the brand, it's over multiplied by infinity. So I think the IPL has been mired in controversy after controversy. It has moved from the sports pages to the front pages. No one wants that. And no one should want that. Sponsors don't want it because they don't want their name associated with muddied waters. Players don't want it because it takes away the focus from playing. Administrators don't want it because they don't want to be hauled up in the dock. And I think the BCCI has behaved terribly as well. I mean, Srinivasan should have resigned on the first day. His goddamn son-in-law got picked up by the police. But these people are made up of such thick rhino skin that even a rhino would falter looking at the toughness with which they conduct themselves.
Do you ever worry for yourself, owing to your very forthright views, especially about things like this, about politics and so forth? Do you look over your shoulder sometimes? Never?
I don't care. I pay my taxes. I have nothing illegal. I don't have a mistress that I'm hiding, so I really don't give a toss.
What is the fundamental issue, do you think, with the IPL? Is it the money?
No, it's a lethal concoction. Where you have money, politics, and business, you have to have controversy. There's no question. So we have mastered the art in India of inducing all these three elements into everything we do. If you take a walk down, Rajpath, you will have these three elements mixing in themselves. So to my mind, it is just this and nothing else.
Right, leaving aside the IPL and cricket for a while, you're back in London. You've just come back from New York. You were in London a few weeks ago as well.
I've actually come back from the Arctic.
From the Arctic?
As in the Arctic Circle.
Right, having attended the...
No, I went on an expedition to the North Pole.
Okay.
So much for being a self-obsessed polar bear watcher as well.
Self-obsessed polar bear watcher as well. Was that purely for pleasure? Or
Absolutely.
You're not doing an oil explanation?
I wasn't attempting to study whale behavior under political changing climates.
Right. We've only got 15 minutes, by the way. Right, swiftly moving on. Let's again, alluding to the fact that you've been in London quite a bit in recent times. You were also in attendance here at the Taj for NDTV's launch a couple of weeks ago. News India 18, basically CNN IBN, but catering to a diaspora market, has launched. Indian TV is now increasingly has a global presence now. But having said that, what is your take on India's booming TV industry, specifically news?
I think it's good and bad. News, by and large, is more sensational, that they need to kind of water it down. I think anchors need to behave like anchors rather than judges in a courtroom. I think the tenor and the tonality needs to, temper a bit. It's too loud. It's too shrill. There's not enough time for discussion. On Indian television, you and I wouldn't be having this kind of conversation. I'd be putting up my hand waiting to speak, and you as the anchor would be speaking all through, like you were almost doing earlier. But we'd let that pass for a minute. So, the reality is that television anchors don't let the guests speak. So the guests are almost there as an additional prop for which they don't even have to pay. So I always say that let Indian television arrive at a semblance of moderation, which allows for discourse, allows for dissent, allows for debate, but in a manner that is civilized, in a manner that respects the consumer's intelligence or the viewer's intelligence. There will be contrarian points of view. In India, every individual, almost as an individual himself or herself, has about 4 contrary views on every practical issue. So can you imagine when you have 6 panelists on a television show? It is nothing short of an indisputable, enduring paradox, but that's the reality. So, we've got to change some of those things. And I think the media, I've written an essay for McKinsey's new book on the media in India, and I said, at one stage it was the watchdog. Today, strangely, in many cases, it's become the lapdog. Because, again, money has been induced into it. You have many politicians who own television news channels. You have media barons who pursue political causes through their television channels. So it's become very murky. And I think what India needs to do is avoid the murkiness in everything. You can have murkiness in marsh waters. You can't have murkiness in every goddamn thing from, porridge to parliament. And I think that's the worry that I keep, fearing.
And obviously, there's a huge issue of credibility as well. In the immediate aftermath of the last general election, we had the paid news scandal. We've got another general election coming up in a few months' time as well. Do you think there's been enough done in the interim to kind of improve that credibility factor?
No, because, see, when you're in bed with someone, and especially when you go to bed with an elephant, you never know when the pleasure will turn to pain, just if the elephant rolls over. So what we're seeing today is a situation such as this. When the going is good, everyone's happy. When you get caught, then you say, oh my God, I didn't do it. The point is, why do we allow institutions on what I call societal pillars like the media to be tarnished in a manner such as this? Why do we invite blemishes? Why do we invite taunt and taint? That, to my mind, is the thing that perhaps India needs to move away from. If it's to be seen as a credible nation which guarantees the freedom of speech, which guarantees the right of dignity, and most importantly, equality in every sense.
Rajdeep Sardesai was here last week and was mentioning how the Gujarati community in the UK will be very excited. He is already excited about the first Gujarati Indian Prime Minister. Is Narendra Modi's appointment a foregone conclusion, do you think? And how will his appointment be perceived by the rest of the world, particularly the UK?
I don't know about the UK, and I really don't care. I'm more concerned about one historical reality, which is India has never predicted a future Prime Minister other than Nehru. Every Prime Minister after Jawaharlal Nehru has either been an accident, which we've paid for dearly, or has been an accident which we've benefited from. With Manmohan Singh, we're yet to determine whether it will be a fatal accident or just a passing first aid, band-aid kind of accident. But the truth is, all these guys are foisted on us. I mean, even Manmohan Singh's daughter didn't imagine her father would ever become Prime Minister. I mean, I'm sure Inder Gujral's children can't remember when their father was Prime Minister. Deve Gowda couldn't even remember if he ever served as Prime Minister because he slept most of the time. So, we've had some of these dolts as Prime Ministers in our country. Now, were they predictable choices? Of course they weren't. But were they there? They were. Have they made a difference? We don't know. A lot of them have caused irreparable damage. I'm delighted that Pranab Mukherjee has now become the president of India, so there's only very limited damage he can cause. But he destroyed a brand India's economy when he was finance minister. So we have another beautiful thing in India. If you do a terrible job, the chances are you'll get promoted. So mediocrity always rises to the top in India, which is why we're a great country for homemade yogurt.
Well, I mean, having said that, would you ever consider entering politics?
Never. I'm too busy. I'm a self-obsessed womanizer. I'd much rather womanize than be with some really ugly people sitting in Parliament shouting them down.
Did that strike a chord, by the way, or?
The self-obsessed?
Yes.
I think it's a lovely statement.
It's a beautiful
Give me the
statement.
mobile number of that girl.
I certainly
when
shall.
We're done with this
I certainly
superfluous
shall.
interview. No, I'm just joking.
So, well, okay, now that's going to strike a chord. Superfluous. But no, but then, I mean, don't you sometimes feel an obligation to, kind of go in, and you've got the contacts, you've got the clout, I'm sure you've got the money as well to enter politics. Do you not sometimes feel the obligation?
I don't want to. I'll tell you why. I'm far too independent, far too logical, and I believe far too ethical to subsume with a political ideology which I may not believe in. A. B. No matter which party I join, I will have a patriarch or a leader. If I join the BJP, I may not have a patriarch by then because Advani would have sulked himself to death. But, you never know. If it's the Congress, I'd still be serving the Gandhis for the next 5 generations, depending on how the progeny system works. So I really don't want to join politics. I don't want to serve under Mayavati. I don't want to be hauled up one day and converted into a statue or work under Mulayam Singh and barely try and understand what the hell he's saying. So I'm much happier being an ordinary citizen. But what I respect my country for is the fact that it allows me the dignity, the right to express myself in a very fair and non-biased manner. I believe non-biased. No one can accuse me of any political, harboring of views. I don't care for any of these parties. I think all of them are good and all of them are crooks, depending on, which day of the week it is. Having said that, I think it is incorrect to believe that citizens must only make a material difference in democracies through political participation. I believe the concept of citizenship and citizenry itself needs to be re-examined. We can't build a society of equality if we treat equality as a perishable commodity. I've often said in my in my lectures, in my talks, that poverty of a material nature, of money, is no poverty at all. The worst impoverishment is the denial of equal opportunities. Sadly, ever since independence, we've denied a large section of our of our country equal opportunities. That is the denial that concerns me more than, the inequality of wealth. If I don't allow you to, come up to scratch or come up to par, I'm actually committing a very, very terrible sin, both from a governance point of view and as well as a citizen point of view. I believe India is woefully inadequate in terms of philanthropy. I believe some of these goddamn rich Indians sitting in London don't do enough for their country. Whether it's the Hindujas or whoever. And, I've never feared of naming them. But I genuinely believe that if we do not give back to society in full measure, we will have barbarians at the gate. And they will not be barbarians in the barbarian sense of the way. They'll be people who we as a society have not allowed to flourish by denying them the equal opportunity. So these, to my mind, are very broad concerns around citizenship. And I'm seized with that. And in fact, I generally believe that if we want to create a modern, robust, more equal India, citizenry and citizenship is what we must address rather than political participation.
But obviously the argument against that is it is still a very, very young country, still finding its feet, isn't it?
See, there's a difference between a young country and an old civilization. I felt pained and sad to have to listen to a Warren Buffett and Bill Gates lecturing me on philanthropy, when in my scriptures, if you go back to Manu Smriti, 3,718 years ago, he mentions the word dan. I mean, he was a male chauvinist pig, that apart. But the concept of dan was not alien to India. So when a society gets rid of history, it perishes at the cost of that riddance. Today we are experiencing that. You know, the values, the ethics, the morality, the concept of sharing, the village as a commune, all those have been dispensed with. Remember, economic wealth and economic progress is not the symbol of a progressive society alone. We need to anchor ourselves in our history, in our culture, in our folk music, in our folk theatre. We've stopped doing all that. Our children don't understand the concept of Indian civilization. So I have lost faith in India, the current nation state. But I have great faith, great belief, great respect, enormous admiration for India as a civilization. Because I think we gave the world a lot. Forget just the zero. We gave them a lot. And if you look at India as a society or as a culture, we were perhaps the only one that benefited, that absorbed from every invasion that came our way. Today, Sufism is because we were invaded. Mughal architecture is because we were invaded. English is because we were invaded. An efficient railway system because we were invaded. We've absorbed. So it is the possibilities and the exponential availability of absorption that keeps societies throbbing. You look at America. Today, why is America where it is? America is where it is because it allowed migrants to come in and to compete. So you had the best of the world competing with each other in the United States of America. So you were building, to my mind, a society that was genuinely working towards not just commercial benefit, but even societal benefit. And that, to my mind, is important.
For you personally, when did you actually lose faith? I mean, is this something that you were aware of when you were growing up, or is this?
No, I
something
lost
much more
faith in
recent?
I lost faith when Indira Gandhi became when the emergency happened. I was very young. I was 12 years old in 1975, so you can calculate my age. I just turned 50, and I thought it was despicable what happened. And post that, as one got involved with student life, I was never involved with any student politics or any such rubbish. I began to feel that we as a society were frittering away. We then came back on an economic backbone in the 90s to create opportunities for what I believe was an entire nation. But again, that was frittered away. So I believe we're a great country in losing opportunities just when we spot them.
So, I mean, your childhood, that didn't really your upbringing didn't really influence your views and the values and the opinions you
Not at all.
now.
In fact, my upbringing should say that everything's fine, to hell with the poor. But that's not the way we were
It was
brought up.
privileged.
No, I don't think privileged or not privileged. I didn't choose my parents. My parents decided to, make love and have me. So it's, their bringing. So I don't, anyone who tells me, oh, were you born into a privileged background? I said, no, I was just born into a normal womb. It just so happened that my mother's husband was reasonably well off. So we got all the spit and polish that goes with a reasonably substantive life. But, it's how you are trained, the values that are imbibed, the values you imbibe, the values that are ingrained in you, that allow you to think beyond yourself. And that, to my mind, is important. I spend 80% of my time doing stuff pro bono that I gain nothing from. Whether it's a Pratham event or whether it's, promoting Brand India like I've just done or whatever. Next week I'm addressing 200 CEOs in Paris, Chinese CEOs. And I'm the only Indian speaker, and there's Martin Sorrell, the chairman of L'Occitane, who's addressing them. Now, why am I doing it? I'm not doing it for any personal gain. I'm not gaining anything from the goddamn Chinese. But I'm doing it because I genuinely believe that India has a very fine story. And we need to tell that story. We need to package that story in an interesting way. Not in the way we are currently packaging it, which is on the back of corruption, which is on the back of scandalous political behavior, on the back of bad governance. Once you change that idiom, once you change that paradigm, things hopefully will improve.
At the moment, it's just the bad stuff that's coming out. And
Always remember, the bad news is what sells. You guys are in that business. You know that better. You know,
Well, true. But then finally, just as you've just mentioned Martin Sorrell as well, what do you make of Saatchi's behaviour with Nigel
I think
Lawson?
it is reprehensible. Charles Saatchi behaved like an absolute cad. He has fallen in my esteem. Not that he was very high up in any case, but I think it's terrible. What is equally alarming is that in a civilized society such as this, no one got up and restrained him. It is a telling statement on the people around. Much like I said on national television in India, when the unfortunate and terrible gang rape of that little girl happened in December last year. I said, look, blame those 5 or 6 rogues and hang them, but equally hang those 100 bystanders who were standing seeing this pair, this boy and girl lying, on a winter night with no clothes on, beaten and bruised, and not one of these guys offered help. Those are greater telling statements of depravity and of a deranged society. You will always have rotten eggs, but it's the chicken farm that you need to look at.
Suhel Seth, thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you.